Baby. Hey, it is 5:56. I look like I'm standing or sitting at the pearly gates, apparently. I didn't know that. Yeah. I hope that this reaches you before you go to bed. The last video took an hour to upload. It's longer than I thought. I signed up for yoga. So at 5:30 I will be in my shorts and the most unassuming t-shirt that I can pick. The least conspicuous t-shirt. I wish I could just put a camera in the yoga class and have it streamed into my bedroom. That'd be most preferred. But I'm joining the class. I'm joining the class. But you know how that goes. I have my copy. So, the story I'm reading is by Sherwood Anderson. It's called I Want to Know Why. There's so many stories in this book that I don't recognize, and so few that I do. For the sake of saving time and not, I guess this decision was made out of laziness, but decided to pick every other story. Use that as a, help me make my decisions for what stories to read to you. I just found the word nigger in the first few sentences. Not a good sign. Sherwood Anderson. I want to know why. We got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. That first day in the east. On the evening before, we had climbed off a freight train at the edge of town, and with the true instinct of Kentucky boys, had found our way across town into the racetrack and the stables at once. Then we knew we were all right. Hanley Turner right away found a nigger we knew. It was Bald Dad Johnson, who in the winter works at Ed Becker's livery farm in our own hometown, Beckersville. Baldad is a good cook. Baldad is a good cook, as almost all our niggers are, and of course he, like everyone in our part of Kentucky, who's anyone at all, likes the horses. In the spring, Baldad begins to scratch around. A nigger from our country can flatter and wheedle anyone into letting him do most anything he wants. Baldad wheedles the stablemen and the trainers from the horse farms in our country around Lexington. The trainers come into town in the evening to stand around and talk, and maybe get into a poker game. Baldad gets in with them. He's always doing little favors and telling about things to eat, chicken browned in a pan, and how is the best way to cook sweet potatoes and cornbread. It makes your mouth water to hear him. When the racing season comes on, and the horses go to the races, and there is all the talk on the streets in the evenings about the new colts, and everyone says, when they are going over to Lexington, or the new spring meeting at Churchill Downs, or to Latonia, and the horsemen that have been down to New Orleans, or maybe at the winter meeting at Havana and Cuba, come home to spend a week before they start out again. at such a time when everything talked about in Beckersville is just horses and nothing else, and the outfits start out, and horse racing is in every breath of air you breathe. Valdez shows up with a job as a cook for some outfit. Often when I think about it, is always going all seasons to the races and working in the livery barn in the winter where horses are and where men like to come and talk about horses. I wish I was a nigger. It's a foolish thing to say, and that's why I am about being around horses. Just crazy. You can't help it. Well, I must tell you about what we did and let you in on what I'm talking about. 4 of us boys from Beckersville, all whites, sons of men who lived in Beckersville, made up our minds we were going to the races, not just to Lexington or Louisville. I don't mean, but to the big eastern track. We were always hearing our Beckersville men talk about Saratoga. We were all pretty young then. I just turned 15, and I was the eldest of the 4. It was my scheme, I admit that, and I talked the others into trying it. There was Hanley Turner, and Henry Ryback, and Tom Turberton, and myself. I had $17 I had earned during the winter working nights and Saturday at Enoch's Meyer Groceries. Henry Ryback had $11, and the others, Hanley and Tom, had only $1 or 2 each. We fixed it all up and laid low until the Kentucky spring meetings were over, and some of our men, the sportiest ones, the ones we envied the most, had cut out. Then we cut out too. I won't tell you the trouble we had beating our way on freights and all. We went through Cleveland and Buffalo and other cities and saw Niagara Falls. We bought things there, souvenirs and spoons and cards and shells with pictures of the falls on them for our sisters and mothers, but thought we had better not send any of the things home. We didn't want to put the folks on our trail and maybe be nabbed. We got into Saratoga, as I said last night, and went to the track. Valdez fed us up. He showed us a place to sleep in the hay over a shed and promised to keep still. Niggers are all about things like that. They won't squeal on you. Often a white man you might meet when you had to run away from home like that might appear to be all right and give you a quarter or a $50 something, and then go right and give you away. White men will do that. Not a nigger. You can trust them. They are square with kids. I don't know why. At the Saratoga meeting that year, there were a lot of men from home. Dave Williams and Arthur Milford and Jerry Myers and others. Then there were a lot from Louisville and Lexington. Henry Ryback knew, but I didn't. They were professional gamblers, and Henry Ryback's father is one too. He is what is called a sheet writer, and goes away most of the year to the tracks. In the winter, when he is home from Beckersville, he don't stay much, but goes away to the cities and deals faro. He's a nice man and generous. Is always sending Henry presents, a bicycle, a gold watch, and a Boy Scout suit of clothes, and things like that. My own father is a lawyer. He's all right, but don't make much money and can't buy me things. And anyway, I'm getting so old now I don't expect it. He never said nothing to me against Henry, but Hanley Turner and Tom Turbleton's father did. They said to their boys that money so come by is no good, that money so come by is no good, and they didn't want their boys brought up to hear gamblers talk, to be thinking about such things, and maybe embrace them. That's all right, and I guess the men know what they are talking about, and I don't see what it's got to do with Henry or the horses either. That's what I'm writing this story about. I'm puzzled. I'm getting to be a man and want to think straight and be okay. And there's something I saw at the race meeting at the Eastern Track I can't figure out. Can't help it. I'm crazy about the thoroughbred ones. I've always been that way. When I was 10 years old and saw I was growing to be big and couldn't be a rider, I was so sorry I nearly died. Harry Hellenfinger in Beckersville, whose father is postmaster, is grown up and too lazy to work, but likes to stand around in the street and give up jokes on the boys, like sending them to the hardware store for a gimlet to bore square holes and other jokes like that. He played one on me. He told me that if I were to eat half a cigar, I would be stunted and not grow any more, and maybe could be a rider. I did it. When father wasn't looking, I took a cigar out of his pocket and gagged it down in some way. It made me awful sick, and the doctor had to be sent for, and then it did no good. I kept right on growing. It was a joke. When I told what I had done and why, most fathers would have whipped me, but mine didn't. Well, I didn't get stunted, and didn't die. It serves Henry Hellenfinger right. And I made up my mind I would like to be a stable boy, but had to give that up too. Mostly niggers did that work, and I knew father wouldn't let me into it, and I used to ask him. If you've ever been crazy about thoroughbreds, it's because you've never been around where they are much and don't know any better. They're beautiful. There isn't anything so lovely and clean and full of spunk and honest and everything as some racehorses. On the big horse farm that are just all around our town, Beckersville, there are tracks, and the horses run in the early morning. More than 1,000 times I've got out of bed before daylight and walked 2 or 3 miles to the tracks. Mother wouldn't let me go, but father always says, "Let him alone." So I got some bread out of the bread box and some butter and jam, and gobbled and let down. I think I just received a text from you. I did. Let's see what you have to say. Independence Day. July 4th is nearly here. Oh god, that's Fiverr. It's not you. Sorry about that. Moving on. So I got the bread, or I got out some bread out of the bread box, and some butter and jam, and gobbled it and lit out. At the tracks, you sit on the fence with men, whites and niggers, and they chew tobacco and talk, and then the colts are brought out. It's early, and the grass is covered with shiny dew, and in another field a man is plowing, and they are frying things in a shed where the track niggers sleep. And you know how a nigger can giggle and laugh and say things that make you laugh. A white man can't do it, and some niggers can't, but a track nigger can every time. And so the colts are brought out, and some are just galloped by stable boys. But almost every morning on a big tract owned by a rich man who lives maybe in New York, there are always, nearly every morning, a few colts and some of the old racehorses and geldings and mares that are cut loose. It brings a lump into my throat when a horse runs. I mean all horses, but some. But some, I can pick them nearly every time. It's in my blood, like in the blood of a racetrack niggers, like in the blood of racetrack niggers and trainers. Even when they just go slop jogging along with a little nigger on their backs, I can tell a winner. If my throat hurts and it's hard for me to swallow, that's him. He'll run like Sam Hill when you let him out. If he don't win every time, it'll be a wonder, and because they've got him in a pocket behind another, and he was pulled or got off bad at the post or something. If I wanted to be a gambler, like Henry Ryback's father, I could get rich. I know I could, and Henry says so too. All I would have to do is wait till the hurt comes, and I see a horse, and then bet every cent. That's what I would do if I wanted to be a gambler, but I don't. Well, out of the stables they come, and the boys are on top of their backs, and it's lovely to be there. You hunch down on top of the fence and ditch inside. Over the sheds the niggers giggle and sing. Bacon is being fried and coffee made. Everything smells lovely. Nothing smells better than coffee and manure, and horses and niggers, and bacon frying, and pipes being smoked outdoors on a morning like that. It just gets you. That's what it does. But about Saratoga. We was there 6 days, and not a soul from home seen us, and everything came off just as we wanted it to. Fine weather and horses and races and all. We beat our way home, and Baldad gave us a basket of fried chicken and bread and other other eatables. It's not edibles, it's eatables. And I had $18 when we got back to Beckersville. Mother jawed and cried, but Pop didn't say much. I told everything we'd done, except one thing. I did, and saw that alone. That's what I'm writing about. It got me upset. I think about it at night. Here it is. At Saratoga we laid up nights, in the hay, in the shed Baldad had showed us, and ate with the niggers early, and at night, when the race people had all gone away, the men from home stayed mostly in the grandstand and batting fields and didn't come out around the places where the horses are kept, except to be paddocks just before a race and when the horses are saddled. At Saratoga, they don't have paddocks under an open shed as at Lexington and Churchill Downs and other tracks down in our country, but saddle the horses right out in the open place under trees on a lawn as smooth and nice as Bunker Bohan's front yard here in Beckersville. It's lovely. The horses are sweaty and nervous and shine, and the men come out and smoke cigars and look at them, and the trainers are there, and the owners, and your heart thwumps so you can hardly breathe. Then the bugle blows for the boys, and then the bugle blows for post, and the boys that ride come running out of their silk clothes on, and you run to get a place by the fence with the niggers. I always am wanting to be a trainer or owner, and at the risk of being seen and caught and sent home, I went to the paddocks before every race, and other boys didn't, but I did. What had happened was that both of the horses are the kind that make my throat hurts. The kind that makes my throat hurt to see. Middle Stride is long and looks awkward and is gelding. He belongs to Joe Thompson, a little owner from home who only has half a dozen horses. The Milford handicap is for a mile, and Middle Stride can track fast. He goes away slow and is always way back at the half. Then he begins to run, and if the race is a mile and a quarter, he'll just eat up everything and get there. Sunstreak is different. He's a stallion and nervous and belongs to the biggest farm we've got in our country, the Van Riddle place that belongs to Mr. Van Riddle of New York. Sunstreak is like a girl you think about sometimes but never see. He is hard all over and lovely too. When you look at his head and you want to kiss him. When you look at his head, you want to kiss him. He is lovely too. He is trained by Jerry Tilford, who knows me and has been good to me lots of times. Lets me walk into horses' stalls to look at them close and other things. There isn't anything as sweet as that horse. He stands at the post quiet and not letting on, but he is just burning up inside. Then, when the barrier goes up, he is off, like his name, Sunstreak. It makes you ache to see him. It hurts you. He just lays down and runs like a bird dog. There can't anything I ever see run like him except Middle Stride, when he gets untracked and stretches himself. Gee, I ached to see the race and those two horses run. Ached and dreaded it too. I didn't want to see either of the horses beaten. We had never sent a pair like that to the races before. Old men in Beckersville said so, and the niggers said so. It was a fact. Before the race, I sent over the paddocks to see. I looked a last look at Middle Stride, who isn't such a much standing in a paddock that way. Then I went to see Sunstreak. It was his day. I knew when I saw him. I forgot all about being myself and walked right up. All the men from Beckersville were there, and no one noticed me except Jerry Tilford. He saw me and something happened. I'll tell you about that. I was standing looking at the horse and aching. In some way I can't tell how. I just knew how Sunstreak felt inside. He was quiet and letting the niggers rub his legs, and Mr. Van Riddle put the saddle on. But he was just a raging torrent inside. He was like the water from the Niagara Falls just before it goes plunk down. That horse wasn't thinking about running. He don't have to think about that. He was just thinking about holding himself back till the time for the running came. I knew that. I could just, in a way, see right inside him. He was going to do some awful running, and I knew it. He wasn't bragging or letting on much, or prancing or making a fuss, but just waiting. I knew it, and Jerry Tilford, his trainer, knew. I looked up, and then that man and I looked into each other's eyes. Something happened to me. I guess I loved the man as much as I did the horse, because he knew what I knew. It seemed to me there wasn't anything in the world but that man and the horse to me. I cried, and Jerry Tilford had a shine in his eyes. Then I came away from the fence to wait for the race. The horse was better than me, more steadier. And now I know better than Jerry. He was the he was the quietest, and he had to do the running. I watched the race calm because I knew that would happen. Because I knew what would happen. I was sure Henry Turner and Henry Ryback and Tom Templeton were more excited than me. A funny thing had happened to me. I was thinking about Jerry Tilford, the trainer, and how happy he was all through the race. I liked him that afternoon even more than I ever liked my own father. I almost forgot the horses, thinking that way about them, thinking that way about him. It was because of what I had seen in his eyes as he stood in the paddocks beside Sunstreak before the race started. I knew he had been watching and working with Sunstreak since the horse was a baby colt, had taught him to run and be patient, and when to let himself out, and not to quit. Never. I knew that for him, it was like a mother seeing her child do something brave and wonderful. It was the first time I ever felt for a man like that. After the race, that night, I cut out from Tom and Hanley and Henry. I wanted to be by myself, and I wanted to be near Jerry Tilford, if I could work it. Here is what happened. The track in Saratoga is near the edge of town. It is all polished up, and trees around, and every kind, the grass and everything painted and nice. If you go past the track, you get to the hard road made of asphalt and automobiles. And if you go along this for a few miles, there is a road turns off to a little rummy-looking farmhouse set in a yard. That night, after the race, I went along the road because I had seen Jerry and some other men go that way in an automobile. I didn't expect to find them. I walked for a ways and then sat down by the fence to think. It was the direction they went in. I wanted to be as near Jerry as I could. I felt close to him. Pretty soon I went up the side road, I don't know why, and came to a rummy farmhouse. I was just lonesome to see Jerry, like wanting to see your father at night when you're a young kid. Just then an automobile came along and turned in. Jerry was in it, and Henry Ryback's father, and Arthur Bedford from home, and Dave Williams, and two other men. I don't know. They got out of the car and went into the house, but Henry Ryback's father, who quarreled with them and said he wouldn't go. It was only about 9 o'clock, but they were all drunk and the rummy-looking farmhouse was a place for bad women to stay in. That's what it was. I crept up along a fence and looked through the window and saw. It's what gave me the fantods. Fantods is slang for being very shaken or upset, spelled Fantods. I can't make it out. The women in the house were all ugly and mean-looking women, not nice to look at, be near. They were homely too, except one who was tall and looked a little like a gelding Middlestride, but not clean like him, but with a hard, ugly mouth. She had red hair. I saw everything plain. I got up like an old rose bush by the window. I got up by an old rose bush by the window and looked. The woman had on a loose dress and sat around in chairs. The men came in, and some sat on the woman's laps. The place smelled rotten, and there was rotten talk. The kind of kid hears around livery stables in a town like Beckersville in the winter, but don't ever expect to hear talked when there was women around. It was rotten. A nigger wouldn't go into such a place. I looked at Jerry Tilford. I've told you before, I had been feeling about him on account of him knowing what was going inside of Sunstreak in the minute before he went to the post for the race in which he made a world record. Jerry bragged in the bad woman's house as I knew Sunstreak wouldn't never have bragged. He said that he made that horse, that it was him that won the race and made the record. He lied and bragged like a fool. I never heard such silly talk. And then, what do you suppose he did? He looked at the women in there, the one that was lean and hard-mouthed and looked like a gelding middle stride, but not clean like him, and his eyes began to shine, just like they did when he looked at me when he looked at me and at Sunstreak in the paddocks in the track in that afternoon. I stood there by the window, but I wish I hadn't gone away from the tracks and had stayed with the boys and the niggers and the horses. The tall, rotten-looking women was between us, just as Sunstreak was in the paddocks in the afternoon. Then all of a sudden I began to hate that man. I wanted to scream and rush into the room and kill him. I never had such a feeling before. I was so mad clean through that I cried, and my fists were doubled up so my fingernails cut my hands, and Jerry's eyes kept shining, and he waved back and forth, and then he went and kissed that woman, and I crept away and went back to the tracks and to bed and didn't sleep hardly any. And the next day I got the other kids to start home with me and never told them I'd seen anything. I've been thinking about it ever since. I can't make it out. Spring has come again, and I'm nearly 16, and go to the tracks mornings same as always. And I see Sunstreak in middle stride, and a new colt named Strident. I'll bet we'll lay them all out, but no one thinks so but me and 2 or 3 niggers. But things are different. At the tracks, the air don't taste as good or smell as good. It's because of men like Jerry Tilford, who knows what he does, could see a horse like Strident run and kiss a woman like that the same day. I can't make it out. Darn him. What did he want to do that thing like that for? I kept talking about it, and it spoils looking at horses and smelling things and hearing niggers laugh and everything. Sometimes I'm so mad about it, I want to fight someone. It gives me the fantods. What did he do that for? I want to know why. There are questions at the end of these short stories that are meant to provoke insight, I guess, into the writing and meaning. Number 1, what kinship with nature does the boy feel, and how is this expressed by the choice of details and language in the story? I don't think he's ever told his location is ever described as being inside of a house. Not that I can think of. It's very sensual person. He describes what he sees and smells and feels. He describes the weather. What is the boy's discovery about Tilford so acute, or why is the boy's discovery about Tilford so acute at his age? Yeah, that's a good question. I've had experiences like this before. I think a lot of it has to do with inconsistency of people, and how at a young age you really can only see them as one-dimensional, and you hope that they are. You hope they are one-dimensional, but the older you grow, the more capricious you grow sometimes, and maybe not always, but what does the boy want his own life to be like? Does he lose faith that it can be as he wants it? I don't know what the boy wants his life to be like. Says he wants to be a nigger. Describes niggers as being truthful. Oh god, he describes black people as being truthful and honest. That they're amiable and I don't think the boy has a very good idea of pain of the world. Seems to have an unscathed mind. Optimistic. Well, that experience with the women, I'd say most boys would have blocked out, or their minds would have blocked out any feelings about intimate relationships with other men, that eye contact that they shared, that deep empathy that he felt. What I'm trying to get at is that when he went to that cottage and saw the women naked, and he knew that it was a whorehouse, most boys' minds would just be swamped under hormones, and God, if they could only just see one breast, but not him. And in many ways, most boys can't help that. And so, again, it goes to show his naivety. I don't know. What element in his own nature does the boy see embodied in the horse Sunstreak? Does Jerry Tilford possess the same characteristics? Not bragging. How does he describe the horse? The horse seems bottled up. He's not trotting, he's not puffing, he's withheld. Has Tilford betrayed the boy's trust or taught him a good and useful lesson? Discuss Tilford's role as a teacher. I don't know. It's bound to happen one day. I hope you like the story, baby. This is 40 minutes long already. 1.3 gigabytes. Wow. You have quite the recording. I like this. I enjoy this. I enjoy reading. But I hope you have a good rest of the day. I think I will. God, my idea that I had last night for your package, baby. You're gonna love it. It's exciting. I love you. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I know you are. Bye.